Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to be doing a Readathon announcement. And the Readathon actually originally took place way back in April, but apparently I missed it because I wasn't paying attention. And it is the Magical Readathons, and this one is the O.W.L.s Readathon, which stands for Outstanding Wizarding Levels, which, if you guys don't know, is from Harry Potter, but you guys probably know that a lot better than even I do. So let's just get right into it. This Readathon is hosted by Book Roast. I'm going to leave her link down below. You should definitely go check her channel out. It's got some good content on it. And I'm doing all this really in preparation for the NEWTs, the nastily exhausting wizarding tests that are taking place in August, so I can participate like fully on time with everybody. So I'm just trying to make up my owls like right now. And originally it's a 4-week Readathon with 12-ish challenges. So I'm going to start today, which is Friday the 15th, and I'm going to go to July 12th, I think, for 28 days. And so basically you have the 12 different types of study or classes that you would, take at Hogwarts and stuff. And there's a specific requirement for each class to take with a book form. And what I really like about this is a lot of effort was put into making the Readathon, especially the NEWTs coming up. I just really appreciate that. It's definitely good stuff. And also, books or titles cannot double up on the different requirements. So if you read one book for one challenge, it can't apply to another challenge. So with me, always trying to do every single challenge, just because. Basically, that means I do have to read 12 separate entries for the 12 challenges, which should be pretty fun, interesting. Hopefully I can get through all 12. Not sure if I will, but let's just give it a shot. It's going to completely mess my TBR up for this month of June. I tried to squeeze a couple in there that would fit, but some of the challenges were a little fairly difficult to incorporate. But let's just get started. Alright, for Ancient Runes, I need to read a book with symbols on the cover. And I have the perfect book for this. It is Pictish Symbol Stones, an illustrated gazetteer. It has the word symbols, plus it has tons of symbols on the cover. Basically, it's just a book that describes all the different stones with symbols and stuff on in medieval Scotland, from the era of the Picts and stuff. Looks really cool. There's information on each one, like where it is and just different information. It's kind of a random book I have in my library, but it fit the challenge perfectly, so it's a good time to read it. Alright. For Arithmancy is to read a book with a number on the cover in the title. This one's pretty easy for me. I like to try and read one World War I book, and a lot of them have either World War I or the dates in the title. So this time I'm going with Betrayal at Little Gibraltar, a German fortress, a treacherous American general in the battle to end World War I, by William Walker. And this book is about, basically, in the Meuse-Argonne offensive, there was an American attack at Montfaucon, I believe, which is like a major German fortress found in the Argonne forest. And apparently, just from reading a little bit on the excerpts and stuff, a brigadier general completely messed up, basically, and there was sort of a big cover-up where basically a bunch of American regiments or divisions were pretty much just cut down because the general totally messed up, and I guess it was covered up and stuff. It looked really interesting, so I picked this one up a little bit ago, and I'm going to read this one for that challenge. Alright, next up we have Astronomy, and it's to read a science fiction novel. I don't really have any sci-fi novels in my whole library, but I do have, I think this might count. Technically, it's probably a little more science fantasy, but I'm going to go with When True Night Falls by C.S. Friedman. This is the second book in the Coldfire trilogy, and like I said, it's a little more science fantasy, but it's a good mix of science fiction and fantasy, so I think it'll count. The opening chapter I just started opens up with, well, I guess you don't know. I mean, that wouldn't make sense if you haven't read the book. But, after reading the first book, basically, future humans on Earth colonize another planet called Urna, with a spaceship that's supposed to detect if it's habitable and stuff. And they eventually colonize Erna. Unfortunately, as they go through the colonization process, there's a big cataclysmic event where pretty much all their technology gets reverted and lost. So, like I said, it's a little more, it's science fantasy, but there's a lot of science fiction elements into it, so I think it's going to count. And so I'm going to go with When True Night Falls. Alright, let's see. Care of Magical Creatures. Read a book that includes magical creatures or features a magical creature on the cover. I actually didn't have too many selections for this, but I found an interesting one. And I'm going to go with J.R. Tolkien's rendition of The Legend of Sigurd and Gudrun, which is his sort of kind of like a translated work of the Volsunga saga. I think it's his own work, but it's based on the saga of the Volsungs, which is sort of like the Old Norse version of the Nibelungenlied, if you guys know about that. But on the cover, we have, I believe that's Grani the horse with the gold chest, and this sort of serpent thing going on must be Fafnir with the dragon. So we have a magical creature on this cover. I've had it in my collection for a long time. I don't know, for whatever. I've read the Nibelungenlied and the Volsung saga. I don't know why I didn't read this one. But it's a good chance to read The Legend of Sigurd and Gudrun by J.R. Tolkien. Okay, and next we had Charms. So for Charms, the requirement was to read a fantasy book. So I'm just going to go with a series that I want to complete. And it's going to be, I've picked The Crimson Campaign, which is the second book in the Powder Mage trilogy by Brian McClellan. And this is my autographed edition that my wife got me for Valentine's Day. Yeah, but autographed edition. She got me the trilogy in autograph format. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know why I just tried to sit the book down. But like I said, this is the second book in the Powder Mage trilogy. I really, really enjoy Flintlock fantasy. It's probably my favorite subgenre of fantasy. And I just figured, I need to get the Powder Mage trilogy done with. I read the first book in the second trilogy, Sins of Empire, way back in January. Don't know why I read that one first, but like I said, I need to get this series out of the way. I'm really enjoying it. I like the first one. Really, really liked the first one in the second trilogy. So, just excited to read The Crimson Campaign. Alright, so there's the fantasy book for Charms. And next we have Defense Against the Dark Arts. And this is a book about or featuring a secret society or a club. And for that book, it's probably going to be an audiobook since I don't have the book. I'm going to do Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. This is the second book in the Gentleman Bastards sequence. And the Gentleman Bastards are basically a secret club, basically, of thieves and rogues who do con jobs and heists and things of that nature. So that definitely fits the bill. I actually couldn't find too many secret societies. I thought in my history stuff I'd have something, but I really couldn't find much of anything, to be honest. So when I went through my fantasy ones, I realized I had already read The Lies of Loch Lamora, but I don't have Red Seas Under Red Skies yet, but I'll either be picking it up or I'll do this one in audiobook format. So that is definitely going to be my secret society requirement. Alright, next we have Divination, which is read a book featuring prophecies. I was originally going to do a book on Greek or Roman religion and actual divination and prophecy, but I don't know. I've read a lot of Roman books lately, so I didn't quite want to do that. So I decided to pick up another fantasy book, and it's going to be the second book in the Chronicles of the Black Company, and the second book is Shadows Linger. And the prophecy that runs, or at least was in the first one, which I assume is going to be in the second one, is the prophecy of the White Rose, which in the first book, it was sort of used as a propaganda thing for a rebellion. Pretty much, there's a rebellion, but they're pretty evil. The people they're rebelling against, they're pretty evil. The Black Company, they're pretty not so good themselves. Everyone's pretty bad and evil in this world. So even though the prophecy for the White Rose is someone who's there to help overthrow these bad people, it's being used by bad people. So and then you find out well, I probably shouldn't say anything, but anyways, there's a prophecy in that one. Well, hopefully I didn't spoil too much. But yeah, pretty much everyone's bad. Everyone is. But I assume Shadows Linger also includes the White Rose. So that's the prophecy I'm going with. Alright, Herbology is next. Read a book with a nature-related word in the title. Alright, for this one, I don't know if this actually counts. It should. I don't know. I'm going with the naturalist. Get it? See, a nature-related word? Naturalist? I mean, it's about as close to nature, like a nature word, as you can. But the whole title is The Naturalist Theodore Roosevelt, A Lifetime of Exploration and Triumph of American Natural History. So I figured this one actually fulfills both, like, the letter of the requirement and the spirit of the requirement, since it's all about I assume it's going to be about Theodore Roosevelt's role in creating like the National Park Services and like his zoological basically studies and research, and how he basically helped out the life sciences a lot, and for like ecological preservation, stuff like that. So I thought that'd be a really good one for Herbology. Next up is History of Magic, which is just to read a historical fiction. Sadly, out of all my history books, I don't have any historical fiction per se. I really didn't want to pick one up. I really had no idea what I was going to go with, but I decided to go with Edith Hamilton's Mythology, and that's going to be right there. I thought I had the book. I'm pretty sure I have the book, but I apparently lost it because I have some other works by Edith Hamilton, like the Greek Way, but when I go find it, Mythology is not next to the Greek Way where it should be, so I have no idea what I did with it. So I'll either be picking up another one, might do this one an audiobook as well. But yeah, this one has some chapters on the Trojan War, which is a historical event. So, it's like a fictitious retelling of a historical event. So, that pretty much counts for historical fiction, I'd say. So for History of Magic, I'm going with Mythology by Edith Hamilton. Alright, next up we have Muggle Studies, and read a Muggle nonfiction book, which is pretty much anything behind me. So for this one, I went with a book. I've been trying to study the Hittites, so I had to squeeze a Hittite book in there. And I'm going to go with The Hittites and Their Contemporaries in Asia Minor by G.J. McQueen. And this book is really cool. It deals with the Hittites, obviously, but has tons of illustrations and figures and photographs in it. That's like its big claim. I think it has like 149, it said somewhere. So that's pretty interesting. So that's definitely a Muggle study, even though the Muggles are, 3,000 plus years old. They're still Muggles, right? Alright, and next up is Potions, and read a book that has, that deals with alchemy, or is about alchemy. This one I also had a struggle with, and none of my medieval books seem to deal with alchemy like at all, so I was kind of bummed about that. But then I realized, I have like a medieval romance book where potions are like, like love potions are sort of like the main figure, not the main point of the book, but they're very prominent in the story. So I'm going to go with The Romance of Tristan, and this is like one of the older the older text by Betrayal. And this is the story of Tristan and Isolde, or Isolde, depending on which translation or which text you're working with. But this is a really famous medieval romance, and this is probably what actually inspired the love triangle between King Arthur, Guinevere, and Sir Lancelot. That sort of like love triangle thing is pretty much the same thing as King Mark, Tristan, and Isolde. Even though this romance is actually most likely earlier than the Arthurian legends. So it's definitely a good story. It's a good chance to read it. And potions figure prominently in the early portion of the story. So it definitely fits the potions and alchemy requirement. And lastly, we have Transfiguration, which is read a book with shapeshifting or a similar theme, or a book with a cat on the cover. For this one, I'm going to read another fantasy book, and it's going to be Heir of Sea and Fire by Patricia McKillop. And there is transformation and transfiguration going on in the first book. People turning into Vestas, which are like these like really like royal deer, stag type things, as well as trees. So there's definitely transfiguration going on. I assume the same thing will be true in the second book, Heir of Sea and Fire. Plus, it's got a really cool cover. This is the second book in the first book is the Riddlemaster of Head, and the trilogy is entitled the Riddlemaster Trilogy. They're pretty short, but they're very interesting. I think they're a really refreshing take on fantasy, and they're kind of like classic now. They're from the 70s. Really enjoyed the first one. and I'm definitely going to read this one. So what I found interesting with all 12 of these requirements, I had like, I think 4 or 5 fantasy books where they're the second book in a trilogy, or a sequence, or whatever. I thought that was kind of neat. But, so I'm going to go with those 12 titles. And to pass the readathon, I thought it was interesting. Like I said, she put a lot of work into doing this. She went with like all the Harry Potter grades and everything. So let's start with the fail grades. You're a troll. You're a troll if you pretty much do absolutely nothing. You're just a troll. Which is kind of like a good play on words nowadays with the internet trolls and everything. But next up is dreadful, which is if you start trying to do some of the challenges, you don't finish any of them. Poor is if you only complete one challenge. And then for the passing grades, you have acceptable, which is you pass at least 2 challenges. Exceeded expectations is past 3 challenges, and outstanding is past 5 challenges. Of course, I'm weird. I'm going to try and do all 12 books if I can. See how that goes. Because apparently for the newts, you can only attempt the harder challenges that take place in the newts based on what you complete out of these 12 classes. So you have to pass the class from the owl to even attempt the newt. So I'm going to definitely try and go for all 12 because I have no idea. There's no way you can do all the challenges for every class in the newts. But I want to keep my options open for when that time comes. Like I said, this was just a really fun Harry Potter based readathon. Thought it was really interesting. If you guys stuck around this long, I just took my Harry Potter like sorting hat quiz test thing. And I figured out which house I got sorted in. And I also took the Patronus test. Figured out what animal or creature I have for my Patronus. But you're going to have to stay tuned for probably the next like couple days. I'll edit those and put those up as well. But if you guys have already participated in this readathon, which is totally possible considering I'm doing it like months late, tell me what you guys thought about it. Tell me what you guys thought about my books, if you've read any of them, if they were good or not. And just general thoughts on books, basically. Lots of books going around this time. But no matter what you're reading this month, or if you're going to do, there are other people doing the Owls in June and July as well. If you do that, or if you're just reading whatever you want to, just always remember, read victoriously. And I have no idea why I snapped that time.